Hello everyone, this is Sara and I'm actually recording this after I've already kind of edited the video, but I did want to do a little bit of a content warning for some of the parts of this video. I will put timestamps down below, but I didn't want to say that the video got a little long and we do read a lot in this video, so you can kind of skip around where you want to listen to, but we thought if we read from some of the articles might be easier to follow because it was such a overwhelming story. But I just want to do a little bit of a content warning. Here is the video. Thanks so much.
Hey everybody, welcome back to our channel.
Welcome back everybody, and obviously by the title, by everything that's going on in the soccer world, WOSO and WSL,
It's not a fun video to make.
It's pretty depressing, so upsetting, so enraging, so
maddening, just all the synonyms,
So as you see by the title, we're going to talk about, what is going on in the NWSL. There was an investigation and it just found such disturbing information about soccer, about the NWSL. We're going to talk about that. It also leads us to that there's a game on the 7th, which is, I don't know when this video is going to come up, hopefully before then. And there's a game on the 11th. So not only do the players are dealing with this, the ones on the national team and the teams who are still in the playoffs for the NWSL, they're going to be playing in a couple weeks, that, there's a lot going on, and it's going to impact soccer, meaning they're playing. They just came out with an interview saying they're not doing too well about the whole situation. It's continuously unfair to these players what is going on. So there's a lot going on and it's just so upsetting. What we're going to we're going to mainly read from a couple articles / a timeline that Just Women's Sports had and kind of talk about it. I mean, there isn't, for Sara and I, there isn't much to say that already isn't out there in the world. There's a lot of articles and a lot of different outlets doing videos and articles. So we're going to read from this article, and this is going to talk a little bit about what is going on, and then we're going to go from there.
Abuse and misconduct were pervasive and systemic at the highest tiers of women's professional soccer, and the sport's governing bodies and team executives repeatedly failed to heed warnings or punish coaches who abused players, according to an investigative report released Monday by the U.S. Soccer Federation. This year-long probe by Sally Q. Yates, the former acting attorney general, found that some of the game's top coaches were the subjects of numerous allegations of sexual misconduct, including some that previously had not been made public. The coaches also leaned on vicious coaching tactics, Yates found, including relentless, degrading tirades, manipulation that was about power, not improving performance, and retaliation against those who attempted to come forward. Players described a pattern of sexually charged comments, unwanted sexual advances, and sexual touching, and coercive sexual intercourse, Yates wrote in her report. That's difficult for me to even read.
We remember it was a year and a half ago, maybe a year ago. The Athletic had a bombshell article about Paul Riley and the situation with Paul Riley and what was happening in North Carolina Courage, what was happening in Western New York Flash, because Paul Riley got a job after he should not have gotten a job. And
disturbing.
The powers that be at Portland Thorns knew there was a problem, knew about all the allegations and the problems, and they gave him glowing reviews to go to Western New York Flash at the time. And it was disturbing, the fact that he could actually get another job after what had happened at the Portland Thorns. From that, there was an article, a very famous article that came out. From that, they said, U.S. Soccer says we need to have an investigation into what is going on. It took a reporter, journalism, to make this report happen now. And then, so that's what their results were. The results were what Sara just read, where there is a systemic issue in the NWSL, that there was sexual coercion, and there was a power, it wasn't to get them necessarily to play better. It was just a power thing, for a lot of these coaches. The report pretty much singled in on the three teams of Chicago Red Stars, Portland Thorns, and Racing Louisville, which a lot of things came out with about the coach, the ex-coach now, Christy Holly. Very disgusting things. We're going to kind of get into that in a second, because we pretty much knew the Paul Riley things and we kind of knew the Roy Dames things that came out, but the things about Holly came out were also equally as disgusting.
U.S. Soccer hired Yates to investigate last year amid reports in the Washington Post and the Athletic of widespread allegations of abuse against coaches in the NWSL. Our investigation has revealed a league in which abuse and misconduct, verbal and emotional abuse, and sexual misconduct had become systemic, spanning multiple teams, coaches, and victims, the report states. Abuse in the NWSL is rooted in a deeper culture in women's soccer, beginning in youth leagues that normalizes verbally abusive coaching and blurs boundaries between coaches and players. The verbal and emotional abuse players describe in the NWSL is not merely tough coaching, and the players affected are not shrinking violets. They are among the best athletes in the world. Yates also found the sports powers brokers reportedly failed the players by ignoring red flags and dismissing complaints. Players repeatedly raised their concerns, Yates said Monday during a call with reporters, but the teams, the league, and the federation either minimized the reports or ignored them entirely. It appeared, she added, that officials prioritized concerns of legal exposure to litigation by coaches and the risk of drawing negative attention over player safety. While several allegations of abuse and misconduct had been made public in media reports, Yates' report opens with a previously undisclosed allegation involving Christy Holly, the male former coach of Racing Louisville. According to the report, Holly requested a one-on-one film session with another player, Aaron Simon, in April 2021. She knew what to expect, the report states. When she arrived, she recalls Holly opened his laptop and began the game film. The coach told Simon that he intended to touch her for every bad pass, according to Yates' report, and pushed his hands down her pants and up her shirt. She tried to tightly cross her legs and push him away, laughing to avoid angering him, the report states. The video ended and she left. When her teammate picked her up to drive her home, Simon broke down crying. According to the report, the Louisville organization declined to aid investigators with any information concerning Holly's employment, pointing to non-disclosure and non-disparagement agreements signed with Holly. Louisville abruptly fired Holly on August 31, 2021, but never disclosed the circumstances surrounding his dismissal. As a result of Holly's misconduct has remained largely unknown, including anyone who might seek to employ him as a coach, the report states.
Yeah, so that was, I remember when he got let go, there wasn't even, I remember we did a video about it. There wasn't even that many articles about why exactly he got let go. It was just kind of like it didn't work out and he got let go. Christy Holly used to be the coach of Sky Blue. Like the Paul Riley situation, there was some problems at Sky Blue, but then he kept getting hired.
Though Christy Holly's time with Sky Blue was brief, the former head coach's tenure on New Jersey's professional women's soccer team was plagued with complaints of verbal abuse, mistreatment, and allegations of a toxic team environment, according to new details in a scathing report outlining systemic sexual and verbal abuse of players by coaches in the NWSL. Holly was asked to leave the team, since renamed Gotham FC, abruptly mid-season in 2017 because of his verbal abuse and relationship with a player. At the time, however, the club had said Holly and the team agreed to part ways mutually, thanked him, according to the report. The former coach went on to work for the U.S. Soccer Federation, allegedly unchecked, before being signed as head coach of Racing Louisville of the NWSL years later, where his patterns of abuse persisted, according to the report. A more serious complaint, Holly sexually coerced a Louisville player, the report says.
Yeah, so I want to, this is one of the bombshell things that came out about this report, especially about Christy Holly, because that was one of the bombshell things that kind of came out. Because, we had known about some of the other things, but the big thing, although this was the big thing, is how the U.S. Soccer handled these complaints when it came to them.
They didn't.
They didn't handle them. The players went through the correct lines of authority to get them handled correctly. You should handle them, and nothing from the highest levels, nothing was ever done. And so when this investigation started, with the Sally Yates investigation, Portland Thorns, Chicago Red Stars were actively impeding the investigation. And then Louisville also was impeding it by saying they had non-disclosure agreements. Oh, I can't talk about we have a non-disclosure agreement. They're using a legal defense of why they couldn't talk about it. So they were actively trying to impede the investigation. So the question was, how are all these coaches being fired secretly? There's atrocities against them at these teams, then being rehired again. And why did the league not do anything about it?
Because they don't care about protecting the players.
Riley was even considered for the head coach, U.S. Women's National Team soccer head coach. He was considered for it.
Didn't Alex Morgan?
Yeah, I read that.
One who said to not hire him.
They asked Alex Morgan, and she said absolutely not. You know, she knew what he had done, and she knew that everyone else knew what he had done. So what we're going to do now, we're going to read some bullet points from Just Women's Sports. Had a really good bullet points because there is so much that goes into this. Sara and I are not going to be able to go over, not going to be able to talk about, but we're going to just read some bullet points.
So Christy Holly, ex-Racing Louisville Sky Blue coach, asked to leave Sky Blue in 2017 due to verbal abuse and relationship with a player. Publicly, however, the club stated that the team and Holly had mutually agreed to part ways and thanked him. And he was fired by Racing Louisville in 2021 after groping a player on multiple occasions. He requested that she meet him to review game film at his house, showed her pornography instead, masturbating in front of her before she left. God. In another incident, again under the pretense of watching game film, he touched her genitals and breasts each time she made an errant pass in the video. Paul Riley, ex-Thorns Flash Courage coach, coerced at least 3 WPS players into sexual relationships. Allegations of sexual misconduct were brought to the NWSL/US Soccer every year from 2015 to 2021. Riley's sexual misconduct was considered by many to be an open secret. In 2014, an anonymous player survey identified Riley as verbally abusive, sexist, and destructive. That same year, U.S. Women's National Team players reported to then USSF President Sunil Gulati and then coach Jill Ellis that Riley was abusive. Mana Shim filed a complaint of sexual misconduct in 2015. Thorns terminated Riley following an internal investigation, but publicly thanked Riley, saying his contract hadn't been renewed. Riley later coached the Western New York Flash and North Carolina Courage. Gavin Wilkinson, ex-Thorns general manager and current Timbers general manager, told Flash VP Riley was put in a bad position by the player and he would hire him in a heartbeat. Ex-Thorns player says Wilkinson would jokingly ask, "Why can't you just stop being a bitch?" when she asked for something. Merritt Paulson, Thorns owner, emailed Western New York Flash president, "Best of luck this season and congrats on the Riley hire. I have a lot of affection for him." Later, according to Courage owner Steve, Malik Paulson told him that Riley was essentially cleared by investigation. Mike Golub, Thorns president of business, remarked to then coach Cindy Parlow-Cone in 2013, "What's on your bucket list besides sleeping with me?" Cone reported incident to Paulson. Golub since accused of creating an atmosphere of disrespect towards women.
We said a lot there, but one of those last things you read, that they were blaming the player. It wasn't Paul Riley's fault. It was the player for putting him in a bad situation. And they actively were saying these things. And I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have seen that, but it's so infuriating. So, I mean, these women were not safe, have never been safe. Mm-hmm. And this is their livelihood / their love. Their safety is at risk. And then we haven't talked much about Roy Dames. As we remember, Kristen pressed the issues with Roy Dames about how he was abusive. So we're going to read a little bit about that as well.
Rory Dames, ex-Red Stars coach and youth club owner, created a sexualized team environment for his youth club, which crossed the line to sexual relationships in multiple cases. U.S. Women's National Team players reported to Gulati and Ellis that Dames created a hostile environment in 2014. 2014 and 2015 players surveyed reported Dames as abusive and unprofessional. In 2018, Christen Press formally complained to USSF for the second time, saying that Dames emotionally abused players. In 2021, a sports psychologist hired by the Red Stars found that 70% of the club's players reported emotionally abusive behavior. Dames was allowed to resign in 2021, and he continues to own his youth club. Arnim Whisler, Red Stars owner, told players since 2014 that Dames was emotionally and verbally abusive. Declined to accept Dames' offer of resignation after Press's 2014 complaints. Whistler accused national team players of wanting to shut down the league. Players insist Whisler knew about Dames. Whisler will tell you he knew nothing, which is a complete lie. When Arnim now says, I don't know anything, that's a lie. He effing knew. Whisler knew Rory was a bad man, but they are friends and didn't want to fire him. Lisa Baird, an ex-NWSL commissioner, in 2021, the NWSL received 4 complaints about Riley, which were largely ignored. Weeks before the Atlantic's bombshell report, Baird was actively trying to keep Riley from resigning over his anger about the post-season schedule. The report says Thorns failed to fully cooperate. The Thorns refused to produce relevant documents for months. The Thorns also impeded our access to certain witnesses. The Thorns' lack of cooperation delayed our investigation, as did Chicago and Louisville. Louisville's cooperation was limited. The Red Stars initially sought to narrow the scope of our investigation by declining to produce documents beyond those relating directly to Rory Dames. The report's recommendation include annual player surveys, background screenings for all coaches, and WSL to determine whether disciplinary action is needed for owners and executive names and report.
Yeah, so that last part is their recommendation after the report. And we're not really going to get into that, but there was a list of recommendations that had to do with background screenings, annual player surveys, and there was an outline for what. So maybe we'll get onto that in another video.
And it's no wonder that Tobin and Christen didn't want to play for Louisville.
Yeah, based on everything we knew about Christy Holly, and there was rumblings. I mean, everyone internally seemed to know what was going on.
Yeah,
and then the people gave so much crap to Christen and Tobin for not wanting to report, and no one knew the whole story. But now this coming out makes perfect sense.
It's like everyone knew, but what could they it's like they couldn't do anything about it,
right?
Because they tried and they tried and tried,
right?
But nothing was happening until 10 years later or whatever.
There was no protection for these players. So they talked a lot about the Portland Thorns. The Portland Thorns just look so. I mean, they already looked bad from the information we had before, but even now they look so much worse.
Yeah, I've seen people they're giving up their tickets. They're not buying season tickets anymore, And
we're going to kind of get into that in a second. But one thing that has just come out that we heard a lot about the higher ups at Portland Thorns and the owner, and also for the Chicago Red Stars. Something just came out in the last couple hours.
The Portland Timbers and Thorns have fired general manager Gavin Wilkinson and president of business Mike Golub after both men were named in Monday's U.S. Soccer Commission investigative report on abuse in women's soccer. Wilkinson played a key role in concealing 2015 allegations of sexual harassment against then head coach Paul Riley, allowing Riley to continue coaching in the league for 6 more years, the report found. Golub created an atmosphere of disrespect and intimidation towards women and working mothers employed at the club over a span of 11 years.
So that is one thing that has happened, which is good. I mean, obviously, these people need to be held accountable, which has not happened yet. But, these 2 owners in particular, the Portland Thorn owner and the Chicago Red Stars owner, Rory Dames said he was willing to resign, the Chicago Red Stars owner. And he basically said, no, don't resign. No, you don't need to. No, I'm not accepting it. This owner is bad news. The Chicago Red Stars Board of Directors voted to remove Arnim Whisler as chairman of the board on Wednesday in wake of the Sally Yates independent investigation into allegations of past abuse, behavior, and sexual misconduct in women's professional soccer was made public. The move comes just 2 days removed of the Yates report, according to the team statement. So, I mean, a little good news. And then Merritt Paulson, who is the owner of the Thorns, released a statement saying...
Paulson released a statement in which he said he was removing myself effective today from the team's decision-making.
What does it take for these owners for there needs to be some type, make them sell the team or give up the team? Because if you remember, Deloy Hansen, I believe his name, he ended up selling his team with the Utah Royals because the allegations about him being abusive came out, and he ended up selling. The owners to be able to make one more penny off these women is completely disgusting. And that's one of the problems. And at the end of the day, these women they weren't safe. Are they still safe? Probably not completely, you know. And it's just so upsetting. And what Sara said before about, supporting these teams. Us as fans, it's like you want to support the women, but giving any money to these teams, like you were saying about the Thorns season tickets.
It just feels dirty.
And for these coaches to be able to get other jobs in the league, just, brushing anything under the rug, very disturbing. From the highest level, very disturbing, because there are people who knew about it and it didn't do anything, blamed the players. And even to this day, these owners, these executives not taking responsibility is disturbing. We didn't even touch on this, but these issues that goes all the way down to the youth leagues, that Roy Dames still has a youth league, and
that is just
that a lot of these problems are happening in the youth level of.
I mean, that's where it starts. That's where you take advantage of vulnerable children, because that's really what they are.
Right.
They're kids.
A lot of these soccer players are abused so horribly on the soccer field that when they go into their regular life with partners and with friends or parents, they don't even know if they're being abused, because they're so used to the abuse on the soccer field. They can't distinguish between abuse and being treated with respect. But the more you read, it's just so disturbing. And these players were suffering for so long and expected to be putting out the best product on the field while being abused. And it's just, they talked about this. This has happened in the gymnastics world, in the Boy Scouts, in the churches, the Catholic Church. It's just like such a pattern that is so disturbing. And the pattern was, especially like even the Catholic Church. Oh, the priest does something, just move into a different parish or whatnot.
It's very disturbing. And I really like what Becky Sauerbrunn said. She said, "It's my opinion that every owner and executive and U.S. soccer official who has repeatedly failed the players and failed to protect the players, who have hidden behind legalities and have not participated in these investigations, should be gone."
Yeah,
I agree.
Definitely.
Well said.
And hopefully going forward, the recommendations. So we kind of went over. We read a lot. So if you're still with us at this point, what was your initial thought when you read this? I mean, how infuriating is it? And is it hard for you to support your teams now because of everything? Especially Portland Thorn fans, they are so they over the years they have been so committed to the Portland Thorn. Going to the games, and they have been, and the Thorns seem like one of the most toxic team environments and toxic upper management, that it's just heartbreaking for the Thorns, in general, because obviously the players are the victims, but as fans, it's like, do you support your favorite team? What do you do? Because you don't want to support anything that has to do with, giving the owners money, I don't know if this will be our only video for this, but the game is on the 7th, which is on Friday in 2 days, and we'll see how it goes there with the game. I even saw Lucy Braun saying something about this isn't a new thing that's going on. It's just new that it's actually being brought to life. And unfortunately, I think a lot of players around the world probably are in similar situations as what's happening in WSL. What does everyone think? I mean, what can you think? So we'll see who else gets ousted, what else goes on. We'll see you guys after the game on Friday. I mean, it's almost kind of has a weird feeling about it now. But we always support the players. So we'll talk to everyone later. Have a great night.
Bye.
Bye.